So let's start the session. Hi everyone, I'm Utkarsh Sharma from IIT Guwahati, and I'll be your host for today's session. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all to the today's session on design and product management. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from a distinguished expert in the field, Mr. Pamit Anand. He's the Vice President at Magic Bricks. He's here on behalf of our sponsor, Product Space. Product Space is dedicated to equipping individuals with the practical concepts and providing full mentorship to help you upskill and transition into exciting new product roles. He's here to share his insightful knowledge with us. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Utkarsh. That was very kind. And I'm as excited about today's session as all of you, I hope, are. I know it cannot match the levels of electricity that we had yesterday at night between India and South Africa. I hope all of you enjoyed that. It was very good. And now that we are world champions, it's good to be it's good to have broken that jinx. But today we'll talk about product and design in product management. Utkarsh, would you like me to dive right in? Of course, first of all, thanks for the very kind introduction. I think I always feel a little awkward when people introduce me with accolades and stuff. But if you don't mind, before I start, there's a couple of things that will make this session very value adding. It's just 1 hour. In fact, now if I look at it, it's about 55 minutes left. So to make the session very useful, if you can indicate if the number of attendees is pretty much what you had expected it to be so that we can start, or would you like me to wait another minute? That's one. Second is, if it's possible, we can have a few cameras on because we'll be doing one or two caseworks together. So my sessions, I try to make them all about working on a case study rather than theory. So we'll of course touch the theory so that we have some context, but since we will also be doing a little bit of case study work together,
Yeah, sure.
see if you can encourage people to put their cameras on, just like we have your bright young face on it helps to get some energy from the crowd. So two requests. One is we seem to have 44 odd attendance. Is that it? And we should start. And second is, can we have a few cameras on, preferably all, but a few would definitely help.
Yeah, sure. So I think we should start. Many will be joining in this session for sure. If any one of you are interested to get a part to just like help in the session, for sure you can raise your hands. We'll allow you for just turn on your camera. You can just raise your hands for any case study or anything in which you can, if you want to part like.
Yeah, so I will be maybe in one of the sixth or the seventh slide, I will be bringing up a case study,
Yeah,
Utkarsh.
sure, sir. We'll
And
allow
at
that.
that stage, I would expect that somebody, one or two volunteers would want to do the case study solutioning with me. So for that, I'll need the cameras on. The camera situation is controlled by you centrally, or is it their
Uh,
choice?
yes, sir. It's controlled by us actually.
Oh, it's controlled by you. No wonder it's completely off. So let's go through with it then. Fine. So uh, I will go ahead and start right away. I can see that there are about 49 people here. I'm assuming all of you are IIT Guwahati, you're from the IIT Guwahati college, and now that you are all looking at product as one of your careers for future. Also, I'm going to assume that you're from across the 4 years, right? So it's first year, second year. Just so that I know my audience, Utkarsh, any corrections there? So this is first year, second year, third year as
Actually,
well.
there are students from other institutes as well. So it's not
Acha,
just IIT Guwahati. There are from other institutes actually.
got it. So now that I know that, but they're all largely, this is largely people from the engineering, BE Tech kind of a background, or
Yeah, exactly. They are mostly from engineering.
got it, got it. Um, all right. So I'll do a screen share and then we'll take it from there. And as and when I need somebody to, Utkarsh, you make sure you stay around because I might
Yeah,
need
sure.
somebody to put their camera off, to put the camera on. Right. Okay, so you will be able to see my screen right now, I'm assuming, and it
Yeah,
says,
sir, it's visible. You can start.
all right, so it says product workshop. Okay, all right. So before we dive into, you know, design thinking in product, let's first understand what is a product. I'm not going to waste too much time here, but it's important that we discuss it. Um, uh, as you can see, I've mentioned a product is also us. We are also a product. In fact, as far as placements are concerned, we pretty much treat it like products, right? So people look at your profile, look at your specifications. So and so has got so and so experience. So and so has his 10 standard score laid out and 12 standard. So we are pretty much also a product in a sense, because when companies come to hire, they pretty much look at us also as a product. So think of yourself as a product which has features, which has strengths, which has weaknesses, which has certain natural capabilities. And one of the reasons why they come to you is probably your pedigree and your intelligence, but then there are a whole bunch of other reasons. So you're also a product in a sense, but in the more software sense of the term, you will find that the world of products is divided into three types, right? B2B products, consumer products, and then there are slightly more enterprise and industry grade products. Those are the three types that you see in this solar system kind of thing that I've made on the left. But what is a product? I mean, while these are the types of product, and I've also included you as a product in the classical sense of the term. Would anyone on chat want to give it a shot in terms of what is a product? Like, what does a product really do? I would be very interested to get some very quick answers. Don't have to write an elaborate answer, but anyone here would want to take an attempt on chat? What does a product do? Let me see. I'll wait for a few answers. Utkarsh, if you want to answer that on behalf of your class, what does a product do? Right? What is a product in the world of software, especially? You're on mute, Utkarsh.
Actually, we have some answers. There's an answer from Abhi that it solves or addresses a problem.
Okay, why don't you read out all the answers? So Abin is
Yeah, sure,
making
sure.
complete sense. Absolutely right. So it
Like
solves a problem. Go on.
this, okay, this from Prince. It acts as a medium to solve users' needs.
Users needs. Lovely.
Way to
Go on.
represent a solution.
Way to represent a solution. Okay, interesting. Go on, Utkarsh. Sorry, I'm
From
making you read it
Harshita.
because I can't see it on my screen.
A product
Yeah,
is
go on.
something that becomes a use for something like
Becomes a
solve
use
a
for
job.
something.
Solve a job to be done by a user. It fulfills a need.
It fulfills a need. Got it. All your answers are more or less correct. I think the simplest way of defining a product is what one of, I think, Abin said in the very beginning. To repeat Abin's answer, it solves a problem. This is the most important way of articulating what is a product. If someone asks you this question in a job interview, for example, they don't expect you to get into the technicalities of it, but the nice answer that you can give is that it is something that solves a problem and it adds value to the life of the user. Of wherever it solves the problem, it's supposed to add value. Therefore, and it therefore also makes some money while solving the problem. Now, why I've added the second part is that while solving a problem is important, solving a problem for free anybody can do, right? And unfortunately, the Indian venture capital ecosystem has been sponsoring free solutions to problems for a long time, right? Where you've had lots and lots of products which are totally free. People come, they use it, and they don't pay you, and therefore you feel that, oh, ours is a rockstar problem. But if there is some money made in the transaction, either directly or indirectly, for example, in Facebook, Facebook makes money indirectly, because every time they solve the problem of boredom. So every time you come in on, actually, Facebook is a bad example now, Instagram. So every time you're bored, you log on to Instagram. And when you log on to Instagram, you are giving your time, and therefore you are the product in that sense. Right. So because you've given away your time, they can advertise products to you during that time. And when they're advertising products to you, somebody is paying them, and so therefore they're making money. So long as you're solving a problem. Now, the problem could be the boredom problem. It could be a problem of convenience, like Swiggy does. It could be a problem of transport, like Uber and Ola do. It could be a problem of communication, peer to peer, casual communication, like WhatsApp does. It could be a problem of formal official communication, like to a certain extent, the Microsoft team is currently doing. There's a slightly more formal setting. All types of problems that are being solved, so long as there is some money being exchanged, that there is some value. And the surest way of knowing how money is being exchanged is if there's value being created. So if there's enough value being created that people are willing to pay for the product, then it becomes a reasonable product. Otherwise, it becomes a research R&D activity, right? So if nobody's paying money for it, if it is quite simply just something that people are using and throwing, then while of course it may still work like a product, look like a product, but it's not a commercially viable product. So you need to be making commercially viable products. Now, there's one more layer of definition which I will not waste too much time on, which says that a product solves a problem and makes money while doing it, but also makes unit economics while doing it. So that's called a minimum viable product. So unit economics is not only are you making money, like Uber is making money. For the longest time, Uber and Ola were making money, but they're making money is not the sure test of whether it's a good product. Making enough money to be keeping it self reliant, or to keep it viable, commercially viable, which means that you don't not only have to make money, you have to also pay people salaries within that money that you make and stay profitable. And Ola and Uber had for the longest time been throwing away money. So they were still making some commission, but they were giving bigger incentives to drivers and riders to in order to use the product. So there was too much money that was actually being pushed out of the ecosystem. And although they were making money, they were not making profits. So now, increasingly in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of venture capital firms, a lot of private equity companies also expect that you not just make money, but you make profit. So you make good unit economics. Otherwise, again, it's not considered a product anymore. It's considered just an experiment, right? So we'll go forward. Now, the subject today is about how do design in the process of product management. And all right, I still have a lot of people in lobby keeping on knocking the door. So I'll just try and, which is why I'd asked, can we just have one cutoff time? One sec, guys. It does disturb. All right, so you can see my screen, but you can't see my PPT right now, Utkarsh. Just checking with you.
No,
I'm
sir,
guessing
we
you
can
can't
see
see
your
my.
PPT. I think it's the first slide, product discovery.
All right, so product discovery. Now, when in the world of product management, first of all, product management is a discipline of management. It is different from engineering because engineering is a very exact science. Management is a fairly inexact, although there is a scientific rigor to it, there is a scientific process to it. There are ways that you can make better quality management decisions, but at the same time, it is not an absolute or an exact science. Now, especially important for an engineering college like yours to understand. While I also come from a BTech background, there's a difference between technology management and product management. Product management involves a lot of business decisioning, and in the scope of that business decisioning, there's no real rights and wrongs. Now, while that's a reassuring thing, right? You'll feel like nothing is wrong, everything is right. uh, in the long term, you'll find out what your rights and wrongs were. So it's a little more complicated than a linear path decisioning, right? A linear decision tree kind of a decisioning. Everything is yes, no, binary. You kind of got an exact science to it. Product management tends to operate in loops, like you can see on your screen, right? Now, broadly, no matter who talks to you or who meets you in your lives going forward, always remember there will be two parts to product management, right? No matter which framework you read, which academics journals you read, everywhere there will be two spaces in product management. One is called the problem space, which you see on the left side. So if you look at the slide, the problem space is on the left side, and then the other one is called the solution space. If you go back to the definition that we discussed earlier, that a product solves a problem and makes money. Now, solving the problem wala part is, in order to solve the problem, you need to understand the problem. So the on your screen where I'm moving my mouse, Utkarsh, just confirm that my mouse is visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible
Yeah.
while moving.
So on the screen, you'll find that there is a problem space and there is a solution space. Now, the world of product management has often been misunderstood to be that of sitting and when you're saying solving problems, creating solutions is the equivalent of solving problems. But the reality is any good product manager will tell you that 70% of their time is about defining just the problem. Pura problem samjho is what we say in Hindi, right? We say that first understand the problem in as much depth as possible. And so this 4D framework was developed across the problem space and the solution space. There are two steps to be done in fair detail on the problem space. Those two steps are discover and define. And then there are two steps on the solution side, which is develop and deliver. So we will be focusing today on the discover define part of it, because that's where now the beauty of it is while the problem while the problem space is about you trying to understand the problem, why are we saying that 70% of the time you should be wasting on just sitting and understanding the problem? The reason is that the solution tends to be very straightforward if you've understood the problem very well, right? You don't have to necessarily, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are going to be some problems which will need you to do very cutting edge technologies, but most other problems where the solution is not going to be cutting edge, you will typically be doing a 70-30 in the world of product management. For example, in Swiggy, all they had to do is figure out whether the problems, what is exactly the problem that the user is facing, the problem, and they articulated that very well, right? I'm using Swiggy because most of you, I'm assuming, would be using it, or you can take WhatsApp for that matter, right? Uh, the the definition of the problem is what you need to spend maximum time on, and we'll do that in a case study today. It's not about solving the problem. Now when it comes to solutioning, that's where the design aspect of it does come in. But the as far as the solutioning is concerned, a lot of organizations, a lot of product companies will ask you to make a prototype. A prototype is nothing but a very rough idea of what the actual solution will look like. Now, it's useful because you can actually take that prototype and show it to a user and see how your user is responding to it, and then go back into the problem definition stage. So you often use a prototype or some kind of an intermediate solution as a way to try to again understand the problem deeper, because and that is what you can see represented in these loops over here, right? So you're trying to go through these loops, you're going through these loops again and again, and over multiple iterations you diverge and converge, and that's how you arrive at the entire product discovery. You're trying to discover the product, right? By going first, you try to define the product. You say, okay, fine, this define the problem, sorry. So you first want to define the problem, saying that okay, users are unable to communicate to each other in a asynchronous fashion. So if they are unable to communicate to each other, what can we do? Google Chat is not good enough. Other market products are not good enough. You do some kind of industry benchmarking. You know that okay, there's Telegram, there's a whole bunch of other solutions, but they have their own problems. Then you go to the market with some kind of a solution, which will, let's say the solution is it's burned onto the mobile. It's a simple app. It opens directly opens a chat window. So that's the solution prototype that you go to the market with, and then you let users try to play around with it. And when they're playing around with it, you do what we call prototype testing. And then you go back into the problem saying that, hey, hang on, they're not playing around with it because they don't realize they're supposed to write text. That's how, by the way, that's how emojis came about, right? Because when they were playing around with it, they wanted to say that they're happy, but they just didn't communicate that they are happy. So then we made the Facebook, the then WhatsApp team. It was that time not acquired by Facebook, but the then WhatsApp team decided to put emoticons, and then so emoticons became much easier. Of course, emoticons existed in other products, but they brought it into WhatsApp as well. So this is the fourth. This is again theory. I think it will be more fun to see how we can take this into solutioning. But again, a lot of what I've said, I'll just very quickly repeat in this slide, in the next slide, that you need to, what will be the features of the product is the exact wrong way of approaching it. And I see a lot of young, people who are trying to enter into the world of product say that I want to build these features. Kash WhatsApp mein ye feature hota, right? That's a feature oriented approach. Instead, you have to articulate what is the problem. Now, by the way, when you also do product management job interviews, this is the exact thing that they're going to be testing you on. What is the, if you are not able to articulate the problem you're solving, if you're going to start talking about the features, you will start likely losing out on the interview. The person who's interviewing you is going to be evaluating you on whether you're defining problems or whether you are talking about features and interfaces. See, again, on the left side, how will the interface look like? How will I make my interface look better, easier to communicate? That is not something that a product manager should sit and worry about, right? What you need to worry about it, is it something that can be solved with the existing set of technologies? Is the problem very clear? How will how will we deliver value? What will be the money that people will be willing to pay for this? Are there any benchmarks for that? Is there any research for that? Instead of sitting and worrying about what will be the technology cost, what will be the cost of the stack, what will be the cost of the employees that you're going to pay, all of those things are not important in the product discovery process, right? So you want to figure out, again, a lot of focus on defining the problem and trying to put goals towards that problem rather than the effort that you would take on creating solutions or making features. Features and solutions is the wrong answer. Now, this is very useful for you guys because you're going to be doing job interviews sooner or later. The moment you say, I would like to, because a बहुत common question होगा. A very common question is, what is your favorite product? And when they ask you this in the job interview, what is your favorite product? You will, let's say you say that my favorite product is Netflix, right? Then they'll say, okay, how would you like to improve it? Immediately people will start saying, I would like to improve Netflix by adding a feature where I can convert it instantly from one language to another, etc. Right? Now, the moment you say that, by the way, they have this feature already. I'm just making a case right now. The moment you say that I want a feature, right, you have lost the interview. A candidate just last week, I asked him, what's your favorite product? He said, Google Maps. I said, what would you like to improve in the product? He said, I would like to make the Google Map product uh, explain to me whether I should take the bridge or not. So he has a very specific problem, right? He could not make out while traveling on his motorbike whether he wants to go up on the bridge or not. So I said, can you articulate this in the form of a problem? And then he got it because he started with a feature that I want the feature to be laid out in 3 dimension where I can clearly be told that take the bridge and instead of or take the flyover. So this was a very classical case where he started with a feature and then I tried to push him in the interview saying that, hey, hang on, what is the problem that you're having? And then he said, no, I can't make out whether I need to take the flyover or not. And then we figured out a solution using design, right? So this is important from a interview process point of view also. Please try to articulate what is the problem statement. All right, now for the next slide, I think, hang on. So we've discussed this. There is a solution focused alignment or a problem focused alignment. You would prefer to have a problem focused alignment. Now, I wanted to do a case study because I think a lot of this tends to be theory in high level. So let's do a case study, and I need a couple of volunteers, which Utkarsh will pick out for me, people
Yeah,
that are
sure.
interested in doing this case study with me.
You can
Let's
raise your
see how
hands
we
if you
go.
want to volunteer in this case study. You can raise your hands. We'll allow your mic and
Yeah,
camera.
it's a case study come role play kind of a thing. So you're going to act like my product managers and you're going to be part of this. So far, whatever I've discussed, just keep that in mind.
So, like, how many volunteers do we need?
Let's have three. Let's have three. Try to make it a mix of boys and girls, just for the sake of
You can
having
turn
a.
on your cameras.
All right. Who is Utkarsh selecting? Let's see.
Mani, Teja, Stylen.
All right. Can I see them? Because I
Yeah,
need to.
actually, they are there.
All right. So I have Mani Teja, we have Stylin,
Stylen and
and
Breathe.
we have Harshita. Right. So Harshita, Mani Teja, and Stylin can please now pay attention to your screens. All right. You are part of my team. Assume that you're working in product management for a company called Schneider Electric. All right. So you're all three are product managers. Are you with me? You can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. So you are a
Yes,
Schneider
yes.
Electric. All three of you are a Schneider Electric product manager. What I've tried to create here on the right, and I've done a horrible job at it, is a lift. It's an elevator lift. You know what Schneider Electric does, right? You guys will have to be on unmute. You'll have to talk to me. So this is a case study. So all three are on unmute. We're going to have a friendly, casual conversation about this case study. The others, you can keep on writing on chat if you have better ideas than them. We'll be reading your chat messages. I'm giving them a case which they're supposed to solve along with me. All right. But in on your screen, can you see a diagram to your right? Yeah, correct.
Yes, sir.
Aditya Kumar,
Yes,
you're right.
yes,
It's a
sir.
lift making company. Yeah. Yes, Stylen, would should I address you as Stylen?
Sir, actually, my name is Sai Priya. So this is my company's Teams account that I joined in with.
Got
So you
it.
can
Got it.
just call
No,
me
that's why I
Priya.
asked you.
Yes,
So
sir.
Sai Priya and Harshita and Maniteja, my question is, first of all, what can you see on your screen? I'm just trying to be sure. I'm not very happy with the Microsoft Meet on my. Yeah. So what can you see?
So we're
Yeah,
able
I
to see an
can.
elevator,
And
uh,
some points written on
doors.
side.
Yes, so you can see a horribly drawn elevator door, right? And Maniteja, you can also see it, and I'm
Yeah,
guessing
yes.
Harshita can also see it, right? You can also see the text on the left side. So
Yes, sir.
we have about 6:33, right? So we want to do this in the next 10 to 15 minutes. We want to solve this case study, and this is typically an interview question. Okay, a lot of job interviews for product managers will ask you this kind of a design question, right? So they'll say you're working at Schneider Electric and you all three of you are working in the software department. Now the software department is responsible. Harshita, is it possible for you to to make your picture available? It's easier to know that you're understanding the problem.
I think I turned my video on. Right.
Yes, now I can see. Yes, thank you, dear. All right. So you are working at Schneider Electric. I am the chief product officer. So I'm your boss. All right. I work with the business team, the finance team, the commercial teams. You also have access to them. So they sit right next to you. The case, there's a sale that has just been made for a 40-story building in some part of Mumbai, in one of the commercial hubs in Mumbai, and the lift that needs to be designed. So that needs to be designed for two offices per floor. So each floor has two offices with 50 employees on it. All right. How would you now? This is again an interview question, so I'll try to structure it like an interview only, where all three of you are going to work together and tell me how would you go about this. Right. This is all that has been given to you. Right. So it's a 40-story building. It has two offices on each floor, and it has 50 employees. Right, on each floor, and you are required to design the system for this lift. Now, how would you go about designing a system for this lift? Now, some people call that system, the technical term for that system is it's called a dispatch system, which means every time anyone calls for a lift, you're supposed to dispatch the lift in the direction. So I'm giving you one hint, right? So what you're designing is your design problem is it's a dispatch system that needs to be designed. Now tell me, what do you want to do? Utkarsh, you want, since I can see you also on screen, you can also participate. Right now,
Yeah,
all
sure,
four of
sir.
you can discuss with me. I'm your boss. What are you going to do? How are you going to? Right. So Anirudh has asked, how many lifts can we build? Now the sales team has gone and committed that they'll do this in one lift. However, you're the product team. You can have a difference in opinion. So good question, Anirudh. Correct. So
So
you
can you
will start
explain the
asking clarifying
dispatch system?
questions.
Like, what do you mean by
Sorry.
dispatch system here?
A dispatch system is just a technique. It's a term which we use every time somebody calls for a lift, right? What is the job of the lift? Everyone, anytime people call for a lift, you dispatch the lift to that floor,
Okay.
right? So you're designing the logic for that. The algorithm needs to be designed for that. That's the system that you have to work on. You are not designing the hardware of the lift. So don't worry about how the lift looks, etc. You're the software product team. All right. So you're designing a system that is supposed to dispatch the lift. How would you go about dispatching the lift? Now, somebody has asked, I think Anirudh from chat has asked a relevant question. How many lifts? First thing you want to know is how many lifts. My answer to that is it's up to you. You can tell the hardware team that, boss, we need so many lifts. You can also tell the business team that, boss, you've made a miss sell. You will need more lifts. Now, right now, the commitment that the business team has made is that they will sell one lift for this commercial because obviously they're trying to close the sale. So they're saying, we'll do it in one lift for you. All right. Now, try to break down this into problem statements. What would you go about? Like, think about it. What would you go? I think Aditya has also asked a relevant question. We'll come to that. We'll come to the lift capacity part. But first, let's define the problem, right? You want to give it a shot. Again, the reason I do this in the form of a role play is that you get some real time exposure to a problem. Right?
Okay,
All of you
there
would
was
have seen a
also
lift in your life. I hope everybody's seen a lift and everybody's called for a lift. Now think, when you as a user call for a lift, what problems emerge?
I think one will be to prioritize the person who is like at the lower floor or at the higher floor. So
Okay, so
we
you have
should
to
set
write a logic which prioritizes people. Correct. Correct. So that's one part of the problem statement. You have to write a logic that prioritizes people. Now you have some hints there on the screen. Two offices, 50 employees. Karthik has used a very solid term. In just two
waiting
words,
time.
he's explained it. What do you have to solve?
Waiting time.
Let's look at our chat. So it's good that the four of you are under pressure. So I understand that. So the ones who are on, I fully don't worry about it. The idea is to try and do this together, but we can take help from the audience, right?
Exactly.
The reason I put you in the corner is that you were willing to, you volunteered. So you're now in a corner with me. But let's pick up from what our colleagues are saying. What are they saying? They're saying this waiting time is what we need to solve for, right? I also like what Reeth has written. Reeth has read basically our end users are employees. So, firstly, on how many employees use stairs and lifts, all relevant parts of the problem definition. Right. Again, what I'm liking so far is that you've taken my advice seriously. Everybody is discussing problems, right? Now, Murray Reddy has said, I think the time taken for lift to go per floor should be considered. Yes, correct. All of these are relevant points. Now, how do we start this problem solving? How would you want to do it? Sai Priya, right? The one with
Yes.
styling on her name. Yeah, Sai Priya, you want to take a shot. Mani Teja, what do you want to do first? You want to define the problem?
I think
Uh,
we should first consider the timings, when it's most busy, like during the office
Correct.
hours, yeah,
Correct.
or when
Correct.
it's like
Good.
lunch
Good. So
break or
you want
something
to
like that.
define the problem at the time that it is most busy. You want to define that part of the problem at a time that it is most busy. Absolutely. So let's say it is 1 hour, 9 in the morning, when people are coming to office. From 9 in the morning to 10. I'm giving you hints. All right. So that's 60 minutes of time. Go on, try to define the problem. So in that 60 minutes of time, how many people do you think you're dealing with?
Like, there are two offices on each floor. Like, are there
Yes.
50 employees in one office, or like two offices, like
Each
combined?
office has 50 employees. Each floor has two offices and each office has 50 employees. So that is, go on.
Yeah, that comes to
4,000 people of total.
4,000.
So simple numbers, right? 40 stories, 40 into 2 into 50. So you're dealing with 4,000 people. Now you're saying that 4,000 people, and like someone earlier in the chat said, that 4,000 people you have to manage. I'm giving you one more as your boss. I'm telling you, boss, it's 1 hour. In that 1 hour, everybody comes to office. Let's assume. Fair assumption. No, it's not a bad assumption, right? Most people come to
Yeah.
office at the same time between 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So you have
Also,
60 minutes.
also during busy time, it's the maximum capacity of the lift that is being used at the busy time, and usually
Perfect.
it's around 8 people, around 600 kgs.
We'll
Current
make that
observation.
assumption, Utkarsh.
Yeah.
Stay
So
with me. So
we
you're,
can
you're
take that
absolutely
into
right.
consideration.
We'll have to take that into consideration. So let's do that. So let's do some math now, right? So we have 4,000 people that we have to deal with. Let's say that 90% of them are relevant in any given 1 hour. 10% will still come later. So I'm just making an assumption. See, what you're trying to do here and sorry for using job interviews as reference points, but you're typically these kinds of cases come in job interviews, right? So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to show the interviewer that you're thinking and what you have as an approach, right? So you're saying, okay, 40 stories, two offices, 50 employees, 4,000 people, 1 hour is what I need to manage with with whatever number of lifts and whatever capacity. So 4,000 people in 1 hour, but I'm saying that of the 4,000 people, 90% of them will show up in that 1 hour. 10% will always be a long tail. So there'll always be some people coming late, some people absent, some people not relevant. So let's say 3,600 people. Now I have taken 90% because I know the case study. So I'm making the math easier, nothing else. You can take 80% also, right? So I'm saying for 4,000 people into 90% becomes 3,600 people,
3,600.
which means you have 60 minutes to service 3,600 people, right? 1 hour, I said. So anything from any of you here who want to participate? How many per minute are you handling?
Um,
So if you're
you
handling
have to
3,600 people in
define.
an hour,
60.
60 people per minute. Perfect. Palak Gupta has got it right now. So if you're doing 60 people per minute, now you have a 40-story building that you have to handle. Now you tell me, do you think one lift is going to be enough?
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
So first of all, sales has gone and done a bad job. It's gone and told something to the client saying that we'll do it with one lift. Now, however, now as a product manager, why I'm saying there's no such thing as a bad decision. You could still do it, but you need Schneider Electric's manufacturing team to build a very special lift with a very large capacity. Like Utkarsh said, normally it's 8 people, 10 people. Let's say we have a 10 people on a standard. Then with your standard lift of 10 people, how many lifts will you need at any given point of time, given that 1 minute is what?
6.
Yeah.
Six,
For
simple.
Yeah.
every
Very
1 minute.
simple. Correct. Now, why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because from a problem definition point of view, first you need to understand how many lifts does your system has to design. Now, whether it is you end up, let's say that in the interview discussion, because we have limited time here, it's just a 1 hour meeting today with you guys. Let's say that the interviewer tells you, okay, fine, you forget about this. We'll figure a way to make it 3 lifts, which means that we'll make it a 20, the hardware team that designs the hardware of the lift will make it a 20-member lift. It's like a huge, massive lift, very rare, but we'll make it. Right. So now because sales has gone and committed it, so we'll make a 20 lift. So in that case, you have 3 lifts to handle. So now you have to design a lift algorithm for 3 lifts. Now you've defined the problem. Now you have to design an algorithm where 3 lifts have to manage a 40-story building, which has 3,600 employees in 1 hour coming and going, wherein the speed to travel from one floor, all of this you will have to ask your interviewer. So, or the person who's your product head. Now, in a real world, of course, you will sit and discuss it with your product head. There'll be a meeting here. They'll tell you all this. But in an interview scenario, when this kind of a case study is thrown at you, you want to very quickly start breaking down the problem. The solution is going to be simple. You'll have to figure out, okay, I'll tell you, because I don't have time, I'm going to directly tell you what the solutions would be. The solution would be some kind of a nearest based algorithm where there are 2 metrics being considered. And you'll have to toggle between 2 metrics. One is the waiting time of the person who's calling for the lift. What is the second metric? Because I want to conclude this case study. It doesn't have to be answered by the ones with the cameras on. Even the chat is open. Anybody. So one is when you're doing the lift design, one would be the metric around
I think priority for
waiting
least
time. What is the
distance.
other metric?
Distance, like for least distance, I guess.
Yeah.
Which floor
Priority
has
for
to
least
be
distance
gone
of
first,
travel.
or from which floor we have to take the person to the other floor.
I'm looking for a term. Like you have
There
to
are
design
other
it,
answers
design a
also.
lift that reduces the waiting time and what?
There are other
Yes,
answers
Rishi has
like
got it. Rishi has
number of
got it.
rounds.
Travel time. Time taken to travel from one floor to another. So there are 2 things you have to solve. Are you guys with me? The
Yes.
one with the cameras on, or is this
Yes,
too
sir.
overwhelming? Yes. So Rishi bracket unverified has got the answer right. Right. So Rishi is saying that the problem statement is that you have to reduce the waiting time of the people who are calling for the lift, but you also have to reduce the travel time of the people who are traveling in the lift. So the lift algorithm cannot be one-sided algorithm, which means you cannot design a system where you're only reducing the waiting time, because in order to reduce waiting time, people's travel time might go up. Are you getting me? You
Yes,
cannot,
sir.
for
Yes,
example,
yes.
somebody is calling for a lift on the let's say on the 3rd floor. All right. Now, if somebody is calling for the no, let's use a higher floor. Let's say somebody is calling for the lift on the 25th floor, right? And he just made a request to call for the lift to come on the 25th floor. The lift has already been halting at multiple floors before that. It's already taken member A to travel from first floor to 25th floor. It's already taken him good 4 minutes. So the lift algorithm has to keep in mind that in this case, it will not prioritize the waiting time. It will prioritize the travel time of member A. So the logic that the algorithm that you will finally design will be a combination of cases where you will say in some cases, travel time is more important. After this threshold, waiting time is more important, and so on and so forth. Making some sense, right? Now, the solution is not expected from you in an interview or in this kind of a meeting, but how you break down your problem now, guys, that is what design thinking is. This is a design problem where you've first broken it down into simpler parts and then you've solved the problem. It's not an estimation problem. There are guesstimates also which are relevant to product management, which you'll have to do guesstimates also. Here there was no guesstimation. There were a few minor assumptions and there was a problem breakdown that you did along with me. All right. So now we have only 12 to 20, 15 minutes left. So we have one more case study, which we'll do later, but you guys can put your cameras off. You did a decent job, by the way. It is difficult to come on camera and work on a random case about lift design. Next time you take a lift, think about what they've done to make the lift experience better, right? Thank you, Harshita, Sai Priya, and Mani Teja. You've been good. And of course, thanks the people on chat. I can see some very decent answers. All right, Utkarsh. So I'm left with you now. And you
Sure, sir.
participated well, buddy. Good stuff. But making
Thanks,
sense,
sir.
right? How we go about trying to fix the problem first, and then after you've defined the problem, solving the solution. Priyansh has already solved the solution. So he's saying divide the 40 stories into three parts. 1 to 13, 14 to 27, 28 to 40. No, I mean, that could also be done, right? I like what Mari has said. Mari is saying that we can add 1 point of complexity. In the 1 hour, we consider people won't arrive at the building at the same rate throughout. At the end of the hour, the rate increases and thus number of people per minute. Oh, lovely. If you want to add that complexity, that will make it even more interesting. But lovely, you can add it. And I'll tell you what, these are the things that, Murray, these are the things that will make a good impression in an interview and also in a meeting. So when you're joining as a product manager, you will, someone like Pamit will come and tell you, okay, you just divided uniformly in like a normal, just a simple uniform distribution between all the minutes. And if you say that, no, don't do a uniform distribution, do a tapered distribution towards the end of the hour, that makes a very good impression. So you might actually have more brownie points there. Good stuff. All right. But all of this is problem definition, guys. That's the limited point being made today. All right. So you've done a decent lift study thinking. I'll just go to the next slide. What is design thinking? It's exactly what we did in the case study just now. Right. Again, you can see my slide which says, Utkarsh, you can see what is design thinking, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
So I want you guys to just focus on this definition and let it marinate in your mind. It is nothing but tackling complex problems by framing the issue in a human-centric way. What we did here was in a human-centric way, right? We used our human intuition because we've always used lifts. We said, boss, traveling time can't go up, waiting time can't go up. It's a very human-centric way of putting it. But you solve the problem by breaking down a complex problem in a human-centric way. That's exactly what we just did. You will always try to, as a product manager, solve human problems. All right. Now, this is another example. I'll very quickly run through it, which is an example of how Netflix killed all of these video stores, right? This is perhaps before your time. So you've always been seeing Netflix around, but there used to be a time where there was, in order to watch a film, you had to actually make a store visit. And Netflix did a lot of design thinking. They said, boss, a lot of the times going to a store is so difficult because physical stores are far away. This is true for both US and in India. During my time when I was growing up, to find a video library store was in itself a task. So this real-time access situation is what Netflix decided to solve, right? And they were the first people to solve it. They also then obviously also solved catalogs with recommendation engine. They also made it a simple subscription based rather than having this whole so this is before your generation, so you may not be able to relate it, but there used to be this whole concept of having a video library card, which had late fees written on it, because if you don't return the physical video, then you obviously the library loses money. a lot of this, of course, is possible only with the advent of technology. So nobody's taking that away from the equation, right? Because now today you have technology which can give you real-time access to content through the cloud infrastructure, and you don't have a limiting physical-based technologies. You have cloud-based technologies, and therefore Netflix decided to leverage that. So in its early days, when Netflix started doing that, people were laughing at Netflix because they said nobody is going to do this subscription plan from home kind of a thing. But obviously, as bandwidth speeds increased, and then big, even in countries like India, once COVID happened, the whole market is now shifted towards away from theaters and video libraries. And this is again an example of design thinking. Now, there are stages of design thinking. What we did with the design, with the lift problem, you guys with me? Let me see where I'm at. Yeah. So you try to understand people. Right now, we tried to do it. We did it in a bit of a hurry, I must admit, because of the time limitation. But we did it, right? We empathize with people in the sense that, hey, by the way, you should watch this film about. I'll tell you in the end. So we empathized in the form of understanding people with respect to wait time and travel time. And nobody here wants to wait for long, not for a lift, not for a bus, not for anything, right? Especially in today's world. So you did that empathy. You defined the problem. Now, see, the other thing is when it comes to defining the problem, you can define the problem vaguely also, which means you can vaguely say that I want, I'm going to design a lift system where everybody is reaching their destination on time. Now, that's a very vague, poorly defined definition. That you don't want to do. You want to be as number oriented in your definition as possible. You want to be as scientific and quantitative as possible. And for that, sometimes you may not have all the information available. Now, when you don't have the information available, you either make an assumption or you ask your senior, or if it's a job interview question, then you ask your interviewer that, can I assume this? Do you think it's a good assumption? Do you think, for example, we assume 90%, right? Then one of your colleagues said that, boss, all people will not land up in equal distribution every minute. He said you load it towards the end minute. So these are all very good assumptions which you want to discuss. Again, part of defining the problem statement, right? Now, then you do a little bit of idea generation. Now, some of the people on the chat have done that, right? Which is quite good. Like one or two of them have said that, why don't we then divide the 40 floors into 3 sections? That's one way of trying to minimize the risk of waiting time as well as traveling time. So you then start generating ideas, you start creating a prototype. Now, in certain cases, you might not be able to make a prototype. Like in the lift case, you might not be able to make a real lift system prototype, but you might be able to make Excel sheet simulations of what would happen in certain circumstances. So you want to create a prototype or you want to create simulations. All of these things will be taught to you at a relevant stage in your life if you decide to do product management. But it is part of design thinking, right? Because whatever design you make, you want to simulate whether it is actually going to deliver value for at least 99% of the use cases, or preferably 99. Many product managers will say even 90% is good enough. So if 90% of the use cases are getting handled in your simulations and in your prototype, if most people are happy, you might want to still go ahead with it, right? So that's another way of thinking about prototyping. So you create the prototype and then you test it, then you refine the product. You want to keep refining the product till, like I said, it reaches the 90% number. Utkarsh, anything from the class you want me to answer? And then I'll just quickly summarize with some more theory and then one last very tiny case.
Yes, sir. You can take the second case study. We can extend the time. There's no problem in that. So you can explain further.
All right. So before I go to the second case study, another way of thinking about how you want to define problems, right? See, again, I've probably said this a lot in the last 50 minutes, where you want to keep figuring out ways to define the problems is a very simple 5 W's 1 H framework. Basically ask all the W questions, right? Which is, who is the target audience? Very standard, very obvious questions, right? Which unfortunately in this case study, all the 3 participants who came did not ask me. Right? Who is the target audience? They should have asked me. I would have told them the target audience is the employees, both who are waiting for a lift, as well as those who are traveling. The moment I would have said that, they would have known the answer. Right? At least they would have known where to go with the answer. Now, obviously with lot of love and respect to all three of them, they were it's so sudden and out of the blue, but such an obvious question, no, Utkarsh. Such an obvious question. You have to just ask who is
Yes.
the target audience, right?
But
And the
so if
answer
we
is that.
considered it as an office, so I think mostly they'll be employees, I guess.
Yes, but even see again, they don't fall for this employees one answer. Harshita, you're right. The target on the audience is the employees, but this employee one who's waiting for the lift and employee 99 who is in the lift. So you want to further break down the employees also into types of employees who are in different stages of the lift consumption metrics. Please understand that. So always try to take your target audience and then try to create what that word is very important, personas out of it. So one user persona is, okay, the guy who's about to get into the lift, he's waiting for the lift. And Harshita, you're right, there the broadly the target audience is employees, right? One could make the case, somebody smart in a job interview scenario might say that while target audience is the employees, another important segment that you have to look for is the admin team. Why? Because the admin team is responsible for costs of running the lift. So you can't sit and reduce wait time and keep sending the lifts everywhere and increase the electricity bill for, because Schneider Electric, we cannot make expensive operating lifts. So there's a commercial angle also to it. So I could make that argument with you. Are you with me? So I mean, it's an intellectual argument, but it's still relevant. It's not an irrelevant argument. Right. So I'm glad you guys are getting my point. I think I can see that you're understanding how you have to break down the problem further. So you ask all the questions. You ask who's the target audience, what are their pain points. Again, the moment you try to inquire this, and in a real world office scenario, yes, your bosses will guide you, but they don't want to guide you every step of the way. So it's not going to be like your senior will tell you, okay, fine, now you take down their pain points now, because the pain points are going to get harder. Like over after, like you're not going to be designing the entire system. You're going to be designing a subsystem within the system. So you will have to do a lot of the work yourself in terms of how to break down the problem and define the the pain points, right? Understand the timing and the conditions under which the pain points occur. So this, if you're in a, whether you're in an office environment or in a job interview setup, I keep bringing up job interviews because these kinds of questions will come in job interviews with respect to product management, right? You must try to clarify what are these things. You must try to get the answers to who is the audience, what are their pain points, when will these pain points occur, where will they occur, why do you think solving this problem is a important problem for Schneider Electric, and how are they currently doing it? Like, how do lifts normally work currently? Now, somebody in the chat had mentioned that they work many of these high rise buildings. They actually divide into three zones. So you don't have lifts operating in all three zones, but that's not necessarily the best solution. You can think of better solutions also, depending on the speed of the lift and all. You might have even a better solution, right? But again, I must congratulate all Mani Teja, Harshita, and Cypriya, I think, who were involved in the case study. They helped me make my points. That was a trick question. So this is the next one. Now this is a little easier. I'm not going to, because we don't have too much time. I want everyone to participate here. We don't need a role play or we don't need a volunteer. But why don't you put it in chat, right? Design a refrigerator for the 8 to 10-year-old kids market. When I'm saying design, I don't mean the physical design. So again, product design questions are not necessarily about the interface design. Huh? That is like very, it's important. It has to be attractive to the kid, etc. So you have to create some, whatever, you put some cartoons on it, but that's not the idea, right? The idea is to design a lift for a kid in the eight. Let me see what questions people ask. Come on, let's see how
Like,
you're going to break down this.
like what is the unit? Like the space inside this, like quantity of items.
Yeah, correct. So you will have a smallish fridge, I guess, because the number of items required for an 8 to 10-year-old are not too large. So maybe a 10-liter fridge or a 15-liter fridge is good enough, right? What is the purpose, someone has asked, and what are the needs? Good, you're in the right direction, but
Yeah.
but the interviewer will never tell you this directly in the answer. So you'll have to ask the same question in a different way. Average height of the kids, interesting. Yes, the average height of
Exactly.
the kid is going to be less. So you're obviously going to design the fridge a little differently. Physical design of the lift will be excellent questions. What's the location of the kids? Urban, suburban? All right, let's say that this is an urban setup, right? The suburban and the rural setups are not going to have fridges for their kids. They will barely have
It's
fridges for
for
themselves. So
household purpose or like any professional purpose, like
this is for household purpose. Good question, Utkarsh. And for Anirudh also has asked a good question. Only kids or multi-use? I would say think about it. It's an interesting one because parents will definitely need to use it. So yeah, your parents are also going to be involved. What do they want to store? Cypria, I think, who's showing a style in. They would want to store nutritious food products, preferably, and they would want to also store some of those fun things that sometimes you want to give the kid as a snack. So a combination of hygienic, high nutrition products, but also sometimes they would want to store. And this is a very good question, by the way. You would want to store the slightly less nutritious, snacky products where you want to just give the kid something just so that the kid is happy. Sometimes you want to reward the kid with a chocolate. So you want to have storage for chocolate as well. You want to have storage for cakes as well, right? Palak is absolutely right. You would want the safety to be a very important. Good, you guys are on it. So I
exactly.
think you've understood the design thinking way of going about it. You're empathizing with the kid and the parent. Understand one thing that none of you have asked is what about the parents? I think one of you did ask that, to be fair. It is a multi-use case because your parent is going to be actually the one who is going to interface between the kid and the between the kid and. But what do you think would be the biggest problem statement for the parent? Why would the parent buy a fridge for the kid? Think about that from that point of view. Does anyone try and want to answer this question? And yes, Cypria, absolutely. We can put specific drawer at the bottom for absolutely great answers rather than reducing the height. You can just give, you don't have to design the entire fridge. You can actually question. You can say that I'm going to design for the parent and I'm going to have a section for the kids. It's an excellent answer. Right. Harshada, you'll have to clarify what you mean by they can't. Um, yeah, safety concerns for the parents. Would they buy? See, the primary reason that you would perhaps consider either a section in your fridge. By the way, this is a very hypothetical question. I don't know if there's any fridge in the world that is designed for 8-year-olds. But if you would want to do it, right? If somebody gives you this problem as a product problem, saying that design it for I've done the research and there is a market for it, you would have to understand that they're doing it for one primary reason, which is that they want the kids' nutrition to go up. They want, because an 8-year-old biggest insecurity that the parent has is that the kid is not eating food on time or the kid is eating bad quality food, tends to eat a lot of that snacky, what do you call it? Junk food. Junk food is the term they used to use in my time. I don't know what they use now, right? So burgers and pizzas have to be discouraged. So the fridge needs to be designed in a way that every time, let's say you're pulling out from the burgers and the pizzas, let's say it has a point system which says pom pom and says you've done a bad thing today, or it gives you some kind of cognitive reminders that, oh, as a kid you can have a chocolate, but you've lost 5 points, you've lost 2 stars, you've lost something. That kind of thinking you would have to bring into the answer, right? So yes, food, it could be done through food sensing, or it could be simply done. Very good, by the way. You guys are taking the conversation in the right direction to encourage healthy eating. See, you could also have simpler solutions where you don't have to do too much in technology. You simply say that the parent is required to put the good food on the left side of the. So you'll give two different colored drawers, right? It could be a very simple solution. So
Also,
the
also I think
red
that
colored
the
drawer and a healthy colored drawer, a pink colored drawer and a green colored drawer, something of that sort. So every time the kid moves something out of the red colored drawer, which is the negative color, he loses some points, and the kid knows that, oh, I've eaten something which is unhealthy, etc. So yes, Anirudh, that's it. Kids don't eat healthy on their own. Good points, right? So the whole idea, the whole problem statement here is to create a situation where the calorie intake of a kid is net positive. So that's the problem statement, right? You want to improve the calorie intake of a kid in a healthy way, and you want the kid to have good food habits. And therefore, you can break it down. You can ask your seniors about what is the current average calorie intake. You can do all of that conversation based on that. But this is again, I thought it was an interesting way of trying to um, solve a problem, but by first empathizing with, from a design point of view, empathizing with the users. The user here is both the parent. So someone mentioned that the parent as well as the kid, right? Yes, Karthik, we can use a vending machine also. Absolutely. A refrigerated vending machine would also be a possible solution. All your ideas are lovely, by the way. But the problem articulation, I think, is more important. So don't get too don't get too carried away with your ideas. Please try to focus on the problem statement. Curiosity in kids to see what's and taste what's inside. Nice. Reward chocolate is given to the kid automatically. Great answers. Right?
Also,
But
I
don't
think there
get
is
carried
one
away
more
with the
problem.
features. Yeah.
That usually in like average fridges, the freezer part is at the top corner. So I don't think the
Yes.
average 8 to 10 year old can reach at the freezer. So I think we should just keep it at the most lowest corner so that he can reach
Yes.
freezer
So
part.
you
I
will
think
design for
that's the
security.
problem.
Yes. So the problem statements are as follows. You will design for health and nutritional intake. You will design for reach and access. You will design for safety and security. And you will also design for, to a certain extent, you will also design for multi-purpose use, right? Because it's not just, so your design statement, your problem statements would be around these things. In this case, you don't have to make them too quantitative. You might want to figure out how much space you want to give to the unhealthy foods and how much space you want to give to the healthy foods, what kind of a design mechanism you want to use to communicate that you have eaten a healthy food or unhealthy food. All of that you can do that. And some of your answers are actually quite creative. The vending machine one is also very cute. It's a very cute idea. I also like one of the other ideas around having a drawer at the very end and let the fridge be the fridge. It's probably the most commercially viable idea because very few parents in the world have space. In today's world, real estate is so costly. Funnily enough, nobody asked me about space, so that's okay. You didn't define that part of the problem. Space is a real problem. So having two fridges in the house is out of the question for most houses. I would say 80-90% of India's houses at least, right? So if you you want to start with that, but good. I enjoyed this session, guys. It's all from my side. I must thank Product Space for inviting me, and I think it was the IIT Guwahati guys. I've enjoyed doing these sessions in both the IITs and the IIMs, and I keep going around. Feel free to ask any questions now if you'd like. Let's keep 5 minutes for quick Q&A, subject to whether you guys are interested in taking GAN from me. But product management and design in product management is my passion. I currently work at Times of India. Times of India's tech and internet venture is what I'm heading. So I work with various product managers in that. And thanks to Product Space for bringing me in. Sakshi, you want to take it from here? Maybe since you're the person who's invited me for this session. Of course, Utkarsh has been a key role, but you can take it from here or you can ask me questions. I mean, whatever, Utkarsh, over to you.
If you're having any questions, you can sure just drop down in the chat.
Yes, I'll start taking questions now. I'm here for another 5 to 10 minutes, so try to shoot your questions. Sakshi, if you can see the slides, it's over to you.
Yeah. Right. So till everyone, types in their questions, I would just like to take 1 or 2 minutes. First of all, thanking all of you for being such an amazing audience. You were very interactive. And this was just a glimpse of, all the things that can happen when you get into product management, right? Design is a very small aspect. It's just the starting point, I would say, that when you want to get into product, right? We specialize in helping students like you, especially the ones who already know that they want to get into product. We help you in understanding all the different fundamental and concepts regarding product management. We design, tech, analytics, growth, everything is what we cover in our own flagship program, that is our PM fellowship, right? You can definitely check out more details about our cohort and all the things that we offer on our website, wherein it's a 10 weeks program and we spend time only on Saturdays and Sundays specifically because we know that you also have your coursework to look into. So for 10 weeks, we handhold you throughout your journey in understanding concepts of product. And at the same time, we help you get ready for your interviews, right? I know that a lot of you would be starting and sitting for internship interviews and your final placements as well in the coming 3-4 months itself. So I would say that this is a very good time for you to start upskilling and getting ready in terms of interview prep, having your portfolio ready, overall understanding what kind of questions are asked in the interview as well, right? A lot of colleges do have product companies that come in to the college itself. But even if you want to try off campus, right, we help in your placements as well. If you want to get into product, we do help you out with your placements by getting companies through our network and helping you folks get placed in companies that are hiring. Okay. So I'm just sharing a link to the details regarding a scholarship that we have for all of you. We've loved collaborating with your college, ESL IIT Guwahati as well. So would love for you to know more about the scholarship that we're offering. I'm just sharing the link of it in the chat here, and you can check out all the details there, right? So a short brief in the scholarship. Most of you, almost all of you can actually apply for it. One person will get 40% scholarship, two people will get 30%, and three more people will be getting 25% scholarship. This would be among the lowest prices that you can get if you want to go for an external course, right? So not taking any more time, you can fill the form there, and it also contains the link to all the details regarding the scholarship as well. Okay. So this scholarship is exclusive for you. So please do make use of it as much as possible. We would love to see more of you folks in our cohort. Okay, over to you, Utkarsh and Pamit. I think there are a few questions that people wanted to ask.
Cool, Utkarsh, you want to read them out to me? I
Yeah,
can't.
sure, sir. There's a question from Abhi. If I'm a designer, how important is it to learn and understand the entire product management field?
Oh, if you're what kind of a designer? I'm assuming if you're a UI UX designer, then the more that you learn, the better, because you'll be working very closely with product managers. And nowadays, the expectation from designers, they know product. But having said that, you don't necessarily have to get too much into data analytics. So there's certain parts that designers that you would not expect them to know how to, for example, analyze GTM, analyze uh, quantitative analytics and all for GA. You would not need to do all of that. So those kinds of tools you would probably, as a designer, not really worry about. What you would worry about is Figma, about the ability to quickly do prototyping, prototype based testing, the whole defined discovery process. You should challenge product managers a lot. We encourage, at least in Times of India, we encourage a lot of designers to come and talk to product managers and challenge their hypothesis or challenge their problem statements. So from that point of view, you should know the early part of it, definitely the early part of it. I would say, I would put it at around 70% of the solutioning part, but 90 to 95% of the early part. There's a lot of overlap because you are going to be working very closely with product managers. I'm assuming that the question is a designer question for user interface design, UI UX design, right? So if that's the question, then you will need to do a lot. Just one second.
Also, there's a
Yeah, what
question from
else?
Palak. How does a day
Yes.
in your life look like as a product manager?
Oh, great. I think at my stage in my career, sorry, I have someone ringing the bell. At my stage in this, I have a lot of people management to do, unfortunately. So I have a fairly large team. And a lot of the times it's about, just making sure that they are on track with respect to their deliverables. But if I were to go a few, in the lives of a product manager in that sense, uh, at least 50% of the time is spent on talking to customers and trying to figure out why they're not using our product or why they're using their competitor's product. Almost every product in the market today has a competitor or it has a very decent surrogate. So trying to understand what is it that is making them use that product and prefer that product is a very important part of the product manager's job. He also works very closely with the technology team. So remaining from a more operational point of view, he has to work with the software development teams to make sure that the changes that they want are quickly made. So you suddenly realize, oh God, I need something changed on my web page or on my app. You have to quickly put it into your development cycle. So that also eats a lot of bandwidth. Um, And then there is about 10-15% of the time that you have to make presentations to bosses, especially to the CEO. Product managers tend to work very closely with the CEO. So you have to at least once, I would say in 2 weeks, in my case, in my team's case, I make sure that all of them have direct exposure to the CEO, where they're presenting what product features they're building, why they're building it, what are the problems they're solving, and what are the ways they feel that they will be able to solve the problem. So that's roughly the life of a typical product manager. But I hope I've answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's a question like, what are the channels or mediums to like we can get updated regarding the latest skills which are just currently there in product management skills?
There are lots of podcasts on product management. You should just look up Google Podcasts. I actually started following product management podcast, this podcast by a company called Gojek. Gojek is a platform which does deliveries, etc., somewhat similar to Swiggy, but it's in the Southeast Asian market. And they have very good conversations on product. Some very good. I've also been interviewed by them once. The name of their podcast is called Go Figure. So that is one. There's one more called IVM podcast. Again, these are all podcasts that I've also been interviewed, so I know them better. But apart from podcasts, I stay connected to the product market also by doing a lot of reading work. I follow Neer Eyal. I follow Lenny's newsletter. I follow. So Neer Eyal is actually someone who writes very prolifically on product. There's one Indian American gentleman named Shreyas Doshi who writes on Twitter a lot about product. He's a very good guy to follow, very informative. Every time he writes about product, what are the new tools emerging in product, what is the impact of AI on product, all of those things he's covering. So you should follow him on Twitter as well as on Medium. I read a lot of Medium articles. I do a lot of Audible listening. So you can download books. There's a very good book. The Granth, the original book is called Inspired, written by Marty Kagan. So you should probably buy that or listen to that. Yeah, I'd be happy to give you a list.
Actually, it is recorded session, so you can just check it out again. You can just see the pre-recorded and you can just note down all the medias he just told.
I think Harshita's question is another very fantastic question. What techniques can be used to synthesize insights? One technique that I do that I use is a card sorting technique, wherein certain. So what happens with insights is they are harder for engineers, and even I come from an engineering background, so it's harder for us to play with words, right? So what we do is we write down the words in cards, and we then try to see how those cards are associated. We put it on a nice whiteboard, and we try to create associations. This concept was actually cracked by Facebook. It's actually become a database management system now. In Facebook's case, they call it GraphQL. So you can do something similar. You don't have to do it. GraphQL is, of course, a real technology now. You can do it on a whiteboard. So basically, every time there are certain insights, you create keyword-based cards and you put them in constellations on the whiteboard and try to create relations between them. You will find some amazing ideas emerge. I think, in fact, even in today's session, by the way, you guys came up with some reasonable stuff. But if you do this as a process, and you make sure that you have a cross-functional team there. You have some people who are very cynical. You have some people. So you also have to play with your people resources a little bit. So one person sitting and doing it in a corner office will never work. You'll need at least 5 or 6 people sitting and arguing, slightly more argumentative people, slightly quiet people. You need that mix of people also. But these are techniques that are important, right? You want to set up a whiteboarding exercise. Another way of doing it is fig jamming. So if anyone here uses Figma, you can actually do it in a virtual environment. It's a lot of fun. And third way is documentation. So you can do Notion-based documents. So Notion is a documentation tool that a lot of people are using. I use it a lot. And you just write it down and you put down some very extreme, shocking statements about the consumer in a very extreme way. And then you get extreme reactions. That's a way of trying to create ideas, right? We should do that exercise. I think it's a separate exercise in itself. We can do it later. But broadly, yeah, these are the techniques to synthesize insights. It's a very good question, by the way, Arshita. I'm glad you guys are already at that level of your roadmap. A symptom and an RCA. Okay, I think you've studied product management, so we'll discuss the difference between a symptom and an RCA. But an RCA is typically something that is user-led. So you will typically see that you will be able to say it's either user-led or tech-led. Sometimes it's tech-led also. You'll be able to articulate it in one line. A symptom is something that you'll say, for example, one symptom of a problem could be that all of a sudden your users have dropped. And the RCA could be the user have dropped on Android because your Android phone is not launching. All right, so that's the root cause. That's why it has happened. But the users dropping is a symptom. So the metric is the symptom, and the technical reason or the user behavior, change in user behavior, is the RCA. But that's a tricky question. It depends on how deep you want to go into the root causing, right? So if you at some level of abstraction, if you look at it philosophically, every RCA is nothing but a symptom for the next level of RCA. So every root cause can, if it goes further and further, you go into infinite regression. There's a word for it. I don't know what is it called. It's called Hippo's trilemma. So you can go deep and deep and deep, and then finally you start asking, what is the meaning of life and all those kinds of questions start emerging. So you have to stop at some point where you say, okay, this symptom is good enough. I'll solve the symptom problem. What's the work division between product designer and manager typically in a project? Product manager is responsible for the outcome. Product designer is responsible for the solution. So in one line, that's the answer. How do you differentiate? Okay, this one I've discussed. Why do we not? Why not we conduct a separate session on this? Yeah, why not? We can do that. Okay, I will have to go, guys. I do have a hard stop at 7:15. I've gone over by time. I really enjoyed the session, and I must thank Product Space as well as Utkarsh and
Yeah, sure.
the IIT team. Yep. All right.
Yeah, sure, sir. We should conclude. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us. We truly appreciate the knowledge you've imparted. And a big thanks to our audience for being so active and engaged. Okay, so I'll give some quick announcements. The link for Product Space Product Management Fellowship Program will be updated in the WhatsApp group shortly. If you are interested, make sure to check it out and fill the form. Assignment 2 of Product Matters 4.0 is now live. Make sure to check it out and take part in the exciting challenges. Week 3 content of Product Matters 4.0 is now live from tomorrow. You can just scroll all the resources and learn. So thank you, everyone.
Cool, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Utkarsh. You've been a great host.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye, guys. See you soon.